All right, everyone, welcome to the channel. Today I'm riding up Gold Valley Road in Death Valley, and I'm retracing the steps of a disaster that happened a while back, which I'll describe up ahead. I made this attempt a while back. I drove further up. I had to abort because it was too long of a hike, but today I've got the mountain bike. So even though I'm starting from down much lower, I feel like I've got a really good chance of making it to the Sheep Canyon area where they had their disaster. I'm probably going to show you some scenes as we go up this Gold Valley Road, but then I'll get to the description of what happened on that fateful day. All right, folks, so we are now over 5 miles in, so somewhere around halfway, and I've only been on the bike for just a pinch less than 30 minutes, so it's going well. There's a summit up here. It's going to get a little more difficult, and then we've got to descend on the opposite side down to the trail. Now, this road's not bad, and keep in mind that our heroes, Alex and Emily, drove a Subaru Forester up this road, which doesn't seem so difficult, but I know the road gets worse up ahead, so we'll show you that. All right, I remember this. This is where I was really terrified in the Sprinter because it's off camber right there. Doesn't seem much, but this is when I kind of realized I wasn't going to go too much further. But just one little thing like that can put a damper on your back roading with the Sprinter for sure. But this is very, very rough in here because we're kind of in a wash, sort of. But we'll be all right. Just get through this. It gets a little better over here. Here's another off camber section. Okay, here's a steep part, off camber. Yeah, this gets a little dicey. A lot of sharp rocks. And this leads right up to the summit. I got up here in the Sprinter and decided, had enough, so I pulled out right here on the left and decided not to execute this next spot here. Okay, up we go. Oh boy, this is a little bit dicey. I think I want to go over here and then maybe back to the other side. Oh yeah. And here you can see the summit coming up, and then we drop down to the other side and we'll get a glimpse of Death Valley when we gain the summit here. Oh yeah, you can see Telescope Peak over that way to the right. Oh my God, this is beautiful. And then that's just looking down below Telescope Peak there is Death Valley. Okay, folks, so now I'm going to switch here to my hiking trip, which I did in April of 2023, so almost 2 years ago. And I'm going to describe what happened to Alex Lofgren and Emily Henckel, and then we'll pick up where my hike diverged. All right, everybody, I drove the Sprinter van about as far as I wanted to up this Gold Valley Road. It's getting a little gnarly, so I think I'm gonna hoof it. It's certainly a good Jeep road, but the Sprinter is just a little top heavy, and this off camber, rough, steep stuff just isn't ideal, so gonna hoof it from here. So what I'm doing today is I want to retrace the steps of a tragedy in Death Valley, which involves a couple, Alex Lofgren and Emily Henckel, and they were from Ohio and came out to Death Valley to have a little adventure. And it should be pointed out that they were both experienced hikers. And also warn you that there is a death involved with this. So before I go on, I want to express my condolences to Emily and all the family members and everyone involved, because it's just a case of things going very wrong, despite the fact that they were experienced hikers. The other thing I want to say is I may be a little bit harsh on them and the decisions made, but the reason for that is that hopefully we can all benefit from their mistakes. So I proceed with some caution and some understanding about the situation. So basically what happened was They came out on vacation to go to Death Valley. They wanted a good adventure. They talked to a ranger, and the ranger had mentioned Gold Valley is a cool place to go and do some adventuring and hiking. Look over my shoulder there, you can see the snow-capped peaks over there. That's Telescope Peak. That's the highest point in Death Valley at around 11,000 feet. It's absolutely beautiful from here. I'm going to do a little pan for you. So anyway, what happened is Alex and Emily came out here in their Subaru, which is a somewhat capable vehicle, but certainly not at the level of a Jeep. And they came out on this road, and what happened is they were pretty far back here, maybe a little beyond where I am right now, where it starts getting rough, and they double flatted on the Subaru. And really to be out here, that was mistake number one, because really to be out here you need proper tires, not just all season tires, but rather mud and rock tires, off-road tires. And so the Subaru would not have been equipped like that. So anyway, they double flatted. So then it became time to figure out what they wanted to do. On this road, it's about 12 miles back for them to get to Greenwater Valley Road or Furnace Creek Wash, depending on how you want to call it. And that's a place where they could probably have gotten help, although it's not well traveled, but probably every day there's a few people that come along there. And that would have been the move to do. But instead, they decided to try to hike to Mormon Point, which is down by Badwater. It's a little shorter. I think it's maybe 7 miles instead of 11. And one thing to note is, 12. When I mentioned it's 12 miles back to the Greenwater Road, you're still not on pavement yet. In order to get to pavement, it's another 10 miles over toward Salisbury Pass and Jubilee Pass area, and that would have been a place where there's a lot of traffic and it's paved. So anyway, they were looking at hiking back that way or taking the quote-unquote shortcut down to Badwater area, and they decided to do that. Now, being the off-trail, off-road people they are, had the foresight to mark their car, leave a note in their car, mark the trail as to which way they'd gone. They had told people where they're going. So all that was good. And a lot of people say you should stay with your car because, and the reason for that is that if people know you're missing, as far as the search and rescue helicopter team, it's easy for them to find a car in the desert. It's not so easy to find humans because they can fly right over you and not see you, even if you're waving and doing everything you can. But, oopsie, that's one thing they did right, and it might have saved Emily anyway. They marked the car, left a note with the car, they marked the trail with rocks and arrows, and let people know where they're going. So if the car was discovered, at least they would know where to look for them. They did that. They started hiking, and then they quickly discovered that the hike was a lot more severe than they had expected. Now, the right thing to do would have been to turn around at that point, realize they'd made a bad choice, and head back on the road, even though that would have, of course, used up more energy. And it's easy to understand how people can make the decision in that case. And so Emily waited at the top of the climb, and Alex decided to see if he could scramble down. And separating was probably not a great idea, but that's what they did. I think Alex wanted to check it out. Alex got partway down, and then he realized that it was pretty treacherous and he probably shouldn't continue. So he started back up, and he was in communication with Emily by voice. So he was yelling to her and letting her know that he couldn't find his way down, and he was going to climb back up. Well, while climbing back up, he yelled that he'd lost his grip, and he had a severe fall. Fell all the way down the canyon. And so there's Emily at the top of the fall. She can hear Alex. He's still alive, but he's obviously severely injured. So she has no choice but to try to scramble down and get to him. So she scrambles down, and she knows his route didn't really work. She goes on the other side of the canyon, which arguably was maybe a little bit easier. But she got all the way down almost to Alex. And Alex is still alive and moaning in pain. And she comes to kind of a cliff, and it's about 30 feet down. There's just no way down. So she throws her backpack down, nothing else to do, and then decides to jump down and try to land on the backpack and hopefully soften the fall a little bit. But she goes ahead and does that. She survives the jump or the fall, but she breaks her ankle fairly severely, just snaps it. She goes to help Alex, and unfortunately for Alex, his injuries were too severe and he passed away. So at first Emily figures, well, she's down the difficult part and she'll just continue down and go for help, even though she knows she's in extreme pain because she just lost her husband. So she looks over the edge and she realizes that she's just in a midpoint and there's another cliff that she cannot get down. So she's going to have to wait to be rescued. So she's got a space blanket and a little bit of water, a little bit of food, and she just kind of hunkers down there, tries to stay in shade and keep cool enough in the daytime and warm enough at night. So she survives, and then eventually a helicopter flies over, but it doesn't stop. And she's pretty sure that the helicopter saw her, but not 100% certain. Day goes by, and she's starting to wonder whether the helicopter saw her or not. What had happened is the helicopter had come and figured out where she was, but realized it was going to be a very difficult rescue. There's no place to land, so it's going to have to be a cable extraction. And so eventually the search and rescue people were able to extract her out of there, and her husband Alex's body as well. And so she has survived after this horrible ordeal. And there's a foundation in Alex's name that was started afterward, and that's still going on. So that's something good that came out of it. So I guess the question is, what do we learn from this? And that is that, this story is similar to the Death Valley Germans, which is a much more famous story, the family of four who vanished in Death Valley for many years. It wasn't until about 13 years later that they had figured out what exactly had happened to them. And that's a story I'm going to tell at another time. But the similarity is that in both cases, the people decided to take a back way, a trail, or off trail in the case of the Death Valley Germans, where they were not going to run into anyone, versus staying on the road they came in on, even though it might be a little longer and harder. And that's the takeaway lesson. Two mistakes that Alex and Emily made. The first was to decide to take the trail rather than the main road, even though it was longer. And then the second mistake was not turning around when they realized it was going to be really dangerous to descend. Anyway, I'm hiking toward the trailhead where they had started their adventure. They had driven this section that I'm walking here. It is a beautiful hike. I'm enjoying this. I'm not sure I'm going to get all the way to the trailhead because it is a bit of a ways. And I certainly don't want to endanger myself after telling the story of these two, but I'd love to get on the trail and just see what they saw and have you guys check it out as well. So stay tuned. We should be at the trail pretty soon. I want to say it's a couple of miles at most. The road's decent so far. Whoa, pretty decent. Everything's so loose and rocky here. And there have been sections that have been pretty bad. But right here is very right. I've been able to ride the whole thing, but some of it's been just a little bit sketchy. Somewhere in here is where Alex and Emily flatted. So I'm not sure if I think their car maybe made it to the trailhead. I don't know if they flatted right before the trailhead or if they were able to drive it there. But I think the car was at or very near the trailhead. So that'll be coming up shortly here. This is the approximate area where the trailhead started, and that's where Alex and Emily would have made the decision to try to travel down the trail. And so what happened is they hiked for a while, and then it got more and more technical. And after, I think it probably halfway or 4 miles or something like that, they encountered this waterfall, and Alex asked Emily to stay at the top, and he was going to try to down climb it, see if he could make it down. Now, as far as Alex, you know, he served in the military in Afghanistan, and his post-military career was working on veterans' rights and things like that. And one of the things he was working on, and it eventually passed, I think after his death, was to try to get it so that anybody who served in the military would get a free access to national parks and facilities for lifetime. So that actually worked out, and I think that was passed in 2021. So they obviously made some bad decisions, and I want to just talk about that. You know, hindsight is 20/20, but if we can learn something from it, then maybe we can prevent this happening to someone else. But when they were out here, they decided it was about 7 miles down to, I think it's called Mormon Camp, down by Badwater on the trail, or you could go back the road, and it's, I think, 12 miles back to the Furnace Creek Wash, more main dirt road, and then another 10 miles to the paved road where you would for sure get help, but you probably would get help at Furnace Creek Wash if you walked along there for a while. But anyway, that would have been the thing to do. And other people say you should just stay with your vehicle because your vehicle is easy for the search and rescue folks to find. And a lot of people say they should have tried to drive it out, but you know, I don't know about that. They had 2 flat tires, and that's what kept them from driving. But they did have a spare, but I think it was a Forester, so it didn't have a full-size spare, so the spare probably wouldn't have lasted. But maybe they could have put one on, drove as far as they could with 3 wheels, but it's pretty rough out here. Anyway, that would have been one option. The other option would have been hike down the road. And the third option would have been to stay with the car, and they probably should have done one of those. The one they chose turned out to be obviously the wrong decision. So, but again, you know, they were experienced hikers, and that's just the decision they made. They thought it was the best decision at the time. They thought they'd have an easy 7-mile hike down to the road, and they could get help, and it actually would be a pretty nice hike if it wasn't so technical. But that hike is actually a Class 5 technical hike that requires ropes and protection and all that. So, and they had none of that. So very, very tragic. And I just felt like I wanted to come out here and just see what it feels like. There's just nothing out here. It's really remote. I'm being really careful riding the mountain bike here because obviously I don't want anything to happen to me out here. So that probably also means I should start my journey back. It's about 12 miles back to the car, and I'm at near the Furnace Creek Wash Road that I was talking about. So anyway, I hope you found this video informative, and I hope you enjoyed it. Again, my condolences to the family of Alex Lofgren and Emily Henckel. Again, we don't want to be too critical of what they did, but we want to try to prevent it happening to someone else, to someone else's loved ones. So let's just focus on that. Anyway, if you like the video, don't forget to give it the old thumbs up. Subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. And I appreciate you coming along for the ride. So until next time, thanks for watching.